okay. It's been a while. But yeah, I want to talk about this little film that I seen this morning at the cinema called The Matrix Resurrections. Okay, so this film was in my top 10 most anticipated movies of 2021. I am a big fan of those original movies. Yes, even the sequels. I really like Reloaded and Revelations. I probably like those sequels more than most fans of the original movie. But yeah, none of them come anywhere near to the sort of the standard of that first film. You know, I mean, that first film is just amazing. So yes, I was really looking forward to seeing Matrix 4 or Matrix Resurrections. So Lana Wachowski is the only one to return to direct this. I'm not entirely sure if she wrote it as well. Did she write this? Yes, she did. Yeah, so her sister did not return with her. And I kind of understood her reasons for not returning. But I can also understand why Lana kind of wanted to return to the universe as well. I think initially she didn't really want to. But due to personal reasons and family loss, I think it's one of the driving forces to why she returned, to bring these characters that she created and brought to life and just sort of play with them again, to sort of, yeah, tell a new story with these characters. And that's one thing that I really liked about this film. And one thing I was looking forward to was just seeing Neo and Trinity again. So I'm going to talk about what I liked about this film first. So I did like a lot of the ideas that we sort of mainly introduced to within the first, I'd say, 30 to 40, maybe 50 minutes of the movie. It was very weird, quirky, and I kind of liked it. I really sort of liked sort of the weirdness of that first kind of half of the movie, maybe it was. And I just felt like it felt a little bit, it felt fresh. It almost didn't feel like it was a retread, even though there were a few sort of flashbacks incorporated into the film from the previous movies. And I've heard a lot of people say that it was just too much. For me personally, I actually felt like it was just the right amount. I think they were incorporated into this new story quite well, and it wasn't just too much to a point where it was just lazy and tacky. I felt like it just worked. But going back to the ideas, I did like a lot of the ideas that they kind of touched on or explored in that first sort of 30 to 40 minutes, where, you've got Thomas Anderson now, who's resurrected. He's living this new life, and he's the creator of sort of the original Matrix as we know them films, but in this world, in this story, he's the creator of the original Matrix games. Now, it's that idea that I struggled to really sort of... It's weird. I kind of liked the sort of the premise. It's just the way it was executed, I felt. How these ideas were sometimes told and executed didn't quite land or stick for me. But I was intrigued. I kind of liked what they were doing, and I was along for the ride, especially for that first hour anyway, or maybe an hour, I'm not entirely sure. I really liked the love story. That is the beating heart of this movie, and it's something that I felt like they lost focus of, that love story between Neo and Trinity. I felt like the sequels really just sort of... It was always one of my gripes with the sequels. I rewatched them recently, and I actually said I rewatched them with my partner, and I said that was one of the things that really kind of bugged me about those, was there was this love story there, but I just felt like they didn't have a lot of focus on it. So I was really happy when I found out, and especially after watching the film, that it was sort of one of the kind of the main focuses of this movie, or it was the beating heart of this movie, and I liked that. And it was just really, really nice. to see these again, you know, these two characters on the screen again, and it was very nostalgic. It was very sweet. They've got great chemistry. I felt Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss, the chemistry they've got, it really was, it was sweet. It was beautiful. And the soundtrack, the score, actually, who did the score for this? Let's just have a quick check. So a Johnny Klimek and a Tom, I've never heard of them. But I did like the score in places. There were moments, mainly the action scenes, I felt like needed just a little bit more energy behind them when it came to the score, and just a little bit more impact, perhaps. Just have a little bit more of that kind of booming, epic, iconic kind of element to them, if you know what I'm trying to say. And I just felt like in places the score was kind of bland. But then there were a few moments that I thought were really nice, and I really dug, like sort of the more tender moments, for example, between Neo and Trinity. There were some really nice moments with the score there. And there was one scene, I'm not sure of the name of the title of the piece of music that was sort of used or created, and it's the scene where Smith and Neo are fighting in this kind of basement area, and I really dug the score there. It did really sort of add something to that moment. And so yeah, I'm gonna sort of go into the negatives now, and let's just sort of start off straight away with what really stood out to me straight away as soon as the first 5 minutes is playing, and that was the writing. Now, I'm not saying the writing in especially the last two movies, Reloaded and Revelations, was fantastic, but the writing in this movie wasn't great, and as a result of perhaps some hammy performances from certain characters, it really just made me cringe. And I think the writing in places wasn't the greatest, and just was a little bit lazy perhaps. And then that takes me into the action scenes. Now, when I think of the original trilogy, I think of some really cool, epic, action scenes, exciting action scenes, iconic action scenes. That's the word I'm looking for, iconic. The action in this movie is incredibly underwhelming. I couldn't believe, like, I'm watching an action scene and it should be exciting. I'm thinking to myself, this really should get me sort of like, get my blood pumping and be like, wow, look at this. And the action in this movie was very underwhelming. There wasn't one action scene, in fact, that I actually thought, oh, that's different, or that's unique, or this is fun. It was maybe one moment in the third act, come to think of it. There was something they did in the third act. I don't really want to say too much about it. Like I said, there's going to be mild spoilers in here, but there's a chase scene in the third act, and there was parts of that I liked. There's a certain fight scene, as I just previously mentioned, with Smith and Neo in this basement area. That was okay as well. I think the score actually helped that in that particular moment. But overall, and this sort of ties in with the overall direction of the movie, it all just felt very awkward and clunky. And I feel like there were a lot of poor decisions made in just the way certain scenes were filmed, camera placements, and that kind of goes all the way down to the writing for me. I think in terms of how they executed this story and certain decisions they made with the story, and that goes, and right through this movie, I think there were poor decisions made on pretty much almost every level, to certain degrees. And I think the direction, Lana Wachowski, this is her first movie on her own, solo, and it felt very clunky and very awkward. And I just really I ended up really questioning a lot of the way the cameras were set up and how certain scenes were shot. It just sort of threw me out of the action scene as well. It was I just can't sort of stress how much I think the action could have probably been better if it was, even if the way it was filmed, and even the way they were choreographed even. And just going back to the ideas a little bit, like I said, I like the weirdness and the quirkiness of it a little bit. Just that there was some really sort of kind of odd moments in that first act going into the second act, but it kind of disappears as you're going into the third act, and you end up in very familiar territory. And it reminded me a little bit of The Force Awakens, and I've heard a lot of people refer to this or compare this to The Force Awakens, where you had something new but also familiar to try and almost sort of tap into a new fan base. I felt like The Force Awakens did a hell of a lot better than they did in this, and I also missed that first act, that first 30 to 40 minutes where they sort of, as it goes into like that familiar territory. That's when I really started to sort of switch off, well, not switch off, but sort of just kind of just lose interest, you could say. And the humour for me didn't stick out as much as a lot of people have said as well. Some people have called this or referred to this film as being a comedy. I didn't quite get that. But like it didn't really stick out to me, or sort of like, yeah, it sort of worked in places. But there was this one particular moment, really weird moment at the beginning of the movie where you've got Morpheus, and it's just before he's like, you've just taken a pill. Mild spoiler, he's just taken a pill. I'm trying to explain the scene and quickly without thing, and there's this moment when all the agents turn around and look at him, and it's just the way that scene played out. I'm thinking to myself, that was odd. Like, that was really, really odd. And, but overall, when it came to the humour, it wasn't, I don't think it was anywhere near what some people have said it to be like, in terms of it turning, all of a sudden we watching a comedy. I didn't agree with that at all. Performances were solid across the board. There were, for me, one or two bland characters. The actor playing Smith, or this new version of Smith, what was his name? His name was Jonathan Groff. I think that's how you pronounce his surname. I think he lacked the charisma that Hugo Weaving had and brought to the character. At the same time, I don't think we didn't need him. We didn't really need the character of Smith. And for me, that was like a lot of other aspects of this movie as well. It's a 2.5 hour movie, and I felt like there was a lot of gristle, a lot of fat on this movie, which they could have cut off and streamlined it. Or maybe just kept the length to 2.5 hours, but streamlined the story a little bit. And yeah, I mean, I feel like the beating heart, the best part of this movie for me was the beating heart of it, which was the love story and sort of that connection between Neo and Trinity. But certain decisions that were made with the story, and like as I previously mentioned with most aspects of this movie, there were some poor decisions made, and I don't think we really needed the return of Smith. And if we did, I just really wanted Hugo Weaving back. I'm sorry, but it was always going to be a struggle for me to accept someone else playing this character. And even though I understood sort of why the character, well, sort of the reason to why they felt this character needed to be in the movie, he didn't really need to be. And I felt like maybe they just could have chosen a better, well, not a better actor, but an actor that more suited to this role. Perhaps I just felt like he lacked the charisma that Hugo Weaving had. Hugo Weaving had this presence about him, and I just felt like that was something that anyone was going to struggle to sort of hit. But at the same time, do we really need him to return? So same goes for the character of Morpheus. I kind of liked how they brought this character back for Resurrections, but at the same time, he could have been a completely new and different character. Same for Smith, if you really wanted to. I think Morpheus had more of a sort of a solid reason, but again, could have still have been a different character. And there's one moment that I really want to talk about, and it's like just the way they kind of treated the character of Neo in some moments. Like, Like, you've got someone who died to save humanity and stop the war between the machines. 60 years later, he returns, you know, to the real world. Again, mild spoilers, but they unplug him from the Matrix again. And he returns, not to Zion this time, but to another city. I think it's called Ion. I think, if my memory serves me right. And just the reception that he receives and everything, and just the way this character was kind of written or treated in those moments was very underwhelming again. Like, this overall experience is just underwhelming, but for someone, for a character that I felt like would be treated like a, you know, the second coming, you know, that Jesus Christ kind of character, just, it wasn't there. It was like, oh, you know, yeah, you saved us and died and thank you and everything, but, you know, I'm going to lock you in a cell now and blah, 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 like, and I just felt like, what? Really? And again, I just felt like perhaps there was too many ideas in this film, and maybe they wanted to do too much, and to a degree, I think that's how it felt a little bit, because I do feel like the story was kind of just, it wasn't quite like, it didn't have much of a focus on it. I can imagine them all sitting down thinking, right, this is what I want to do, but I want to do this and I want to do that, and the story pretty much is like, kind of like this, and it doesn't all kind of just fit and work together, if you understand what the hell I'm trying to say. But yeah, that's how I felt. And yes, I'm going to try and stop rambling on now, but they are my sort of general thoughts, my opinions of Resurrections. It was a letdown. I was disappointed. There were things I liked about it. It wasn't unwatchable. There are moments in the movie that made me cringe and wince, mainly the last 10 minutes. There's a moment in the last 10 minutes, and it just, yes, it's very rare I cringe or call something cheesy, because I like a bit of cheese and I'm attracted to cheese. But for me to actually say, oh my god, that was too cheesy and it made me cringe, for me that said something. And it, yeah, and it was just, it was an okay experience. It was a letdown. There were moments I could see a good film in there. I could see the potential of a good sequel to The Matrix. Unfortunately, there were so many aspects that I felt like they kind of missed the mark on, in terms of just writing and character choices and just even the way the film was constructed. Yeah, they are my thoughts on The Matrix Resurrections, and I will be giving The Matrix Resurrections a 4 out of 10. So yes, they are my thoughts on The Matrix Resurrections. Please let me know what do you guys think of it. Let me know in the comments below, and let's get a discussion going. And if you've enjoyed watching a geek from Wales ramble on about film, and you want to watch more videos from me, more content from me, more reviews, then please hit that subscribe button. It will mean an awful lot to me. Yes, I will be watching No Way Home next, probably tomorrow actually, so I should have a review up at some point Thursday for No Way Home. I'm really looking forward to it. You heard a lot of good things. I'm very late in getting around to catching up with watching what's in the cinema. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I will be seeing you guys soon.